I want to start today's episode by saying something I think a lot of us have never actually heard said directly to us or just don't hear often enough. You are allowed to want this much. Seriously, I want you to hear that for a second because for a lot of us, especially moms, something just happened when you heard that. Maybe you had a little resistance, maybe you quietly said, "Yeah, but," or and started to form some sort of excuse in your head. Maybe it just felt a little bit too big, too bold, and a little too much like something you're not quite sure you can even claim as your own. And that reaction is exactly what we're going to talk about today, because there is one belief I see running in the background of almost every ambitious mom that I encounter, whether it's as a client or just a friend or just conversations that I have in my circle. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been in business or how much you've already built or how clear you are on your goals. It's still there shaping every decision that you make, every price you don't raise, every boundary that you don't have set in your business, every opportunity that you might talk yourself out of before you're even fully there. And that belief is that I'm not allowed to want this much. And I know that might sound dramatic, which is very on brand for me, but you might be thinking, I don't actually believe that. But stay with me because this belief rarely shows up as a thought you can actually point to. It shows up as behavior or a hesitation or the version of your vision that you share in public versus the one you actually have at 11 p.m. when you're rocking your toddler to sleep for the third time and when you're really being honest with yourself. Today, we're going to name it. We're going to trace it back to where it actually came from because you didn't make this up. And then we're going to talk about how you can drop this limiting belief and step into your next level self, not through like toxic positivity or just random affirmations that you don't believe, but practically, tactically, in a way that actually sticks to drop playing small and step into this next level version of yourself. Because here's what I know for sure this belief is not protecting you, it's not keeping you humble or grateful or grounded, it's just keeping you small. And that's not what we're here to do. So let's dive in. Welcome to Behind the Design, the podcast for ambitious women building a business and life they're truly obsessed with. I'm your host, Olivia Austin, mom of two, brand strategist, business mentor, and life enthusiast. Since 2017, I've built multiple businesses, supported hundreds of brands, and overcome burnout more times than I can count. What I've learned is that strategy and hustle will only take you so far. It's your habits, mindset, and vision that actually get you to your next level. Each week, I'll take you behind the curated websites and highlight reels to share the truth about what it takes to thrive in business and life. From high-performance habits and mindset to navigating motherhood with more ease to wellness and business strategies, all through a feminine lens, Behind the Design helps you create a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. I'm so happy you're here. Let's dive in. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do is name the belief. And name the belief that's keeping you small. And I want to preface this just as I did in the intro is that you might be listening to this and be like, no, I dream big. Like I know what I want to do and I have all these big goals. And that's the sneaky part about all of this is that there are written stories and behind the scenes stories that you might not even realize or limiting beliefs that you might not even realize are keeping you small. And this was true for me. I've always been a big dreamer, going after what I want, not apologizing. But there were some beliefs where I was like, ooh, I didn't even realize that that was an issue. And I see that come up with a lot of conversations. And that's what I want to talk about today is like maybe you have some that you do know and that you do feel like you're playing small, but maybe there are other beliefs that are in your subconscious that you didn't know. And that's what we're going to name and get rid of today. So naming the belief, and you want it to be, it's going to be specific, and I'm just going to say what some of them might sound like out loud. So I should be grateful for what I have. Like that's a really big one where you say, oh no, I should be grateful. Everything that I have is already perfect, which there is a place for gratitude in here for sure. Being grateful for where you're at, but also being excited about where you want to go and your goals and all of that. Another one that comes up a lot in business is who am I to charge that much? And you start to resent the work that you're doing, you resent some of your clients just because you weren't able to, didn't want to charge, or you felt like that was too much, or who am I? Like, I need XYZ experience. I need to do all these different things before I can charge that much, and all of that. Another one is I don't want to seem like I'm neglecting my kids. This one for me was very true. I felt like, oh, if I, you know, work too hard in my business, then people are going to judge me, or I'm going to be neglecting my kids, or they're not going to feel like I'm present. That's a very common one that I hear often. Another one is other people have it harder than me. This was another one that came up very often for myself, and that I hear other people that I see as well. Another one, I'll focus on my business when my kids are older. And then another one that it could sound like is I don't want to come across as too ambitious. And a lot of times that is a subconscious one where it's like, oh, I want to like downplay what I'm capable of, or I want to downplay what's going on because I don't want other people to feel bad. And that is very, very true. Like, not apologizing for your ambition. This for me was like my whole life. I would like downplay everything that I was doing behind the scenes because people would be like, you're crazy. You're doing all these things. Like, why don't you just chill? Like, no, Karen, I don't want to chill. I'm like, I'm doing great. Like, you can sit back and chill and watch 3 hours of Netflix every night if you want to, but that's not what I want to do. Anyway, so those are all beliefs that could be popping up, whether you're like, oh, I do have that, or I've thought that before. Just understanding and naming them is the first step to, just becoming aware of what it sounds like. And it could be, it could come across as a voice that talks you out of raising your prices, thinking that you need more experience, that you needed to be in business longer, or no one's going to, not feeling like you're worthy of charging that much. It could also come up as you feeling guilty for working when your kids are home, or your kids want to play with you. And there's different ways that you can balance that out, but that's what it might feel like: guilty working or guilty being with your kids, and vice versa. It could also come up as downplaying your success in conversations where, not acknowledging like where you've gone or what you're doing or the goals that you have for you and your business. And then another one could be like that you feel like you don't deserve the investment, the support, or the help. So you like have to do everything on your own. And that's what it can sound like in your head. In behavior, a lot of times it looks like, and this is a lot of like subconscious where you don't know, like the sounds that are in your head and what it sounds like in your head, that is a little, you can become more aware of that because you're understanding like where that's coming from. But in your behavior, a lot of times it looks like undercharging and over delivering, saying yes when you actually mean no. That was a huge one for me where I was like, why am I saying yes to these things when I actually don't want to do them? Or later I would say yes, and then later I'd be like, wow, I really, really don't want to go. Shrinking your vision to make it more acceptable. Putting everyone else's needs before your own without a second thought, which is just self-sabotage before you even are able to think big or do all the things that you want to do. And then the last one is building a business at half capacity because doing full capacity or going all in seems selfish. And those are all behaviors that could be coming up. So I'm curious, as you're listening to this, did anything resonate with you? Did you realize that, yes, that is how I feel? Like, how do I get out of that? Or did you say, oh, wow, I didn't actually think that, or didn't know that that behavior was that until I just heard it? So just become aware, get grounded in that, start to name those beliefs. And understand where they're coming from. Real quick, if you're someone who's been listening to this and thinking, okay, but how do I actually make this work around my life? I made something for you. It's a free workbook called 6 Figures, Part-Time Hours, The Ambitious Founder's Guide to Building Without Burnout. For the last 3 years, I've worked 3 days a week running 2 businesses that make multiple 6 figures per year separately, and this work is the exact framework that makes this possible. You'll get hyper clear on what's holding you back, where to focus, and what your exact next steps are to remove overwhelm and start to thrive in business and life. It's completely free. Check out the link in the show notes to download it now. Okay, back to the episode. So that's what we're going into now, is where these actually came from. And a lot of times these patterns are inherited, whether it's cultural conditioning, whether it's like a motherhood myth, whether it's your own past experiences. These are patterns that subconsciously live. And I've realized this over the last 4 years. I've just been chugging along, doing things how I always do them, because that's how I've always done it, versus taking a step back and thinking, okay, maybe there's a different way to go about it, or maybe there's a different thought process, or maybe there's, something new that I can learn. That also goes into your mindset and the things that you're doing on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, hourly basis, honestly. So again, these are patterns that have been inherited and are usually from these 3 different categories. The very first one is cultural conditioning. So we live in a culture that has historically rewarded women for being selfless, accommodating, and just kind of going with the flow, doing whatever anybody wanted them to do. And the message has been good women put others first, good mothers sacrifice, they're martyrs. Ambition in women is still coded as threatening and selfish somehow. And I definitely think it's better. I'm not gonna say say that it's not. But it is a cultural conditioning that has been ingrained for literally centuries, and it's not made up, and we have just absorbed that, whether it's from movies or family dynamics that maybe we grew up in, or from watching how the women around you have talked about themselves or anything. And I think it's up to us now. If you're listening to this podcast, if you've been listening, you are, an ambitious woman, and you are different, and you are putting yourself first and trailblazing, whether it's your family, trailblazing the business industry, trailblazing literally anything. And I think it's up to us to rewrite and repave that cultural conditioning. And that starts with whatever that looks like for you, whether it's, owning your business and showing up for your family, whether it's breaking those cycles, whether it's conversations in your friend groups. I know for me, I've had some best friends for 15 years, and I've changed and I've evolved so much. And in the conversations that we have, I find myself giving them tips and telling them how they can change it, and showing up differently, and realizing that you can change someone's life by just one small nudge or perspective or anything like that. So that's the very first one, which is cultural conditioning. And I think the first step to that is just understanding, finding that belief and understanding where it came from. The other one is the motherhood myth, which is that the moment you become a mom, there's a story that's waiting for you, and that's you should want to give everything to your children, that your needs, I don't really know if I totally believe this, but I actually don't believe this, but this is a myth that's given to us, basically, is that our needs come last, in, millennial terms, mommy wine culture, that, your kids are so difficult that you need to drink wine at the end of the day, and whatever, and that your ambition is something that you'll pick back up later, or when your kids are older, or when things quote unquote settle down, which is just a myth. This doesn't just come from outside. It gets internalized, and we see it on a daily basis, and suddenly you're making yourself smaller, not because someone told you to, but because part of you believes it's what a quote unquote good mom does. And don't get me wrong, on a really long day, it's very hard to put yourself first, or when your kids are sick, or you don't have childcare, or all of those different things. But at the end of the day, that you are the best version of yourself and the best version of a mom, and you could show up as the best mom, wife, sister, friend, when you take care of yourself first and when you put yourself first. And maybe some days it is, not being able to do every single thing that you want to do, but it's still like grounded in that energy where you are, the pillar of the family. And then the third thing is, or the third like pattern that could be inherited is just your own past experiences. So maybe you went too hard at some point and you totally burned out. Like this was my own experience, and I went like the total opposite to like working 10 hours a week. Maybe you built something that just like didn't fit your life, and then you just had to let it go or pivot, or have or switch careers, whatever it is. Or maybe you watch someone that you admired and thought succeeded, but then like everything that mattered to you fell apart in the process. And so you learned that wanting too much is dangerous or bad, and that playing it safe is responsible. But keeping the vision small just is not, it's again like coming back to being a mom, like your kids are not going to listen to you. They're going to watch you. So they're going to do they're not going to, what does it say? What is that old saying? It's like, do as I say, not as I do. I want to totally rewrite that, because no kid is really going to listen to their parent, like especially if you're like a teenager, but they're going to see the habits, how you show up for yourself, the goals that you aspire to be, taking care, like doing the things that you love and like going after your dreams. They're going to watch that and want that for themselves as well. And so you want to be that person, be that example for them. And so those are the three patterns like to acknowledge. And maybe you heard one of those beliefs and you're like, okay, this is where I think it came from. Or maybe not. Maybe like you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I don't really know now, but maybe I'm going to journal on this later. Just, I want you to just become aware of where these patterns are coming from and where yours can be shaped. Like I know for me, the cultural conditioning was a really big one. And then same, like, I mean, all of these, it's like you're just seeing what other people did, and like the people in your life and who you're surrounded by, and you're thinking, oh, I'm different than them, which there's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't mean, just because you're different doesn't mean anyone is right or wrong. It's just what your experiences have been. So the cost of quote unquote playing small, I don't want to even say playing small, but just like thinking small, or not going after your ambition. Like there actually is an invisible tax that we're not even aware of. So every time you undercharge, you tell yourself that your client, that your work isn't actually what it is. When you say yes when you mean no, you're training the people around you that your time is available and that your boundaries are negotiable. If you put off your vision and you like that, you communicate to your kids that their needs matter more than yours, and then wonder why you're building and feeling resentful, or if you shrink your ambition to fit inside someone else's comfort zone, you get further from the life that you actually want. That was a really, really big one for me, is like shrinking, like my husband and I, like shrinking our ambition around like our families and our friends, and not really telling them like what we were doing, because we didn't want them to feel uncomfortable, which now we no longer do, but we did do that for a while because we were concerned about other people. And that's another thing too. Like I'm saying that this is for ambitious moms and women in general, but because that is who is listening to this, and I know that you listening, that's who you are. But this also goes for other people in our life, and like our husbands and, our sons and whoever. I can see a lot of these behaviors sometimes like show up and in other people that I love, and try to really, steer them in the right direction that feels grounded and aligned for themselves. And that's really what it is at the end of the day. Like every single one of you that's listening to this, like we all have different goals, different ambitions, different family dynamics, different perspectives, all of those different things. But at the end of the day, the mission is always to be as aligned and as grounded in your life and what you want and go after it unapologetically, not worrying about anybody else. Okay, so that was a side tangent. So every time that you put off your vision for for your family, shrinking your ambition inside someone else's comfort zone, or every time you tell yourself like, "Oh, not yet," or when the timing is right, or like eventually you lose another day of building the life that you were made for. And the cost is not just financial. Like, yes, you very well could be leaving money on the table. I don't really know. But it's energetic. It's it impacts your relationships. It's just the slow like depletion of trust in yourself when you keep telling yourself that you'll do the thing and then don't. And that's really what it is. It's building that confidence for yourself to prove to yourself and keeping those promises to yourself to build your confidence to feel good, to raise your prices, to set boundaries with your clients, to set goals and actually meet them, to build something new that you said to yourself that you're going to. It's slowly building that confidence up for yourself that when all of those small things always compound over time. So now that we've gone through like all the different beliefs, stories, all of that could potentially be keeping you small, it wouldn't be a podcast episode without me telling you how to actually drop this belief and step into it. So if you're listening to this and you're like, yes, like I'm subconsciously doing this or I'm consciously doing it, but I don't know what to do about it, the very, very first thing is to name it when it shows up. So just becoming aware of the stories you're telling yourself. When you send a proposal, what is the first thing that comes up? When you're on a discovery call, what's the first reaction that pops up? When you have a client that is not respecting your timeline, what's the first thing that comes up? When you're looking at your calendar and you're like, oh, I really wanted to do this week, but I don't have time or whatever. Or you want to do one extra thing, but you feel guilty because you don't have that extra hour of childcare. Like whatever it is, just name it as it shows up and you will start to see, and then you can interrupt that pattern. So when you start noticing the belief, it activates and you can see what situation is triggered by that. So like what is said, how it made you feel, just notice without any judgment. And this starts to create space between you and the thought. Like it's not just you, it's a pattern and there's a big difference. So as you start to name it, it interrupts and you can be like, oh yeah, I didn't realize that I was even doing that. And this has been like, I have a few coaching clients right now and like this has been one of the biggest thing that we've worked on is those limiting beliefs and rewriting those. And that's made like the biggest difference between, making $10,000 a month and $50,000 a month and just like how they show up. Because if you feel, I would say a really, really big one that is like a belief, like just to use as a tactical example is like feeling like you as the business owner that you have to do everything because clients hire you to do the work. And that is a limiting belief and that's what's keeping you in like a hustling or like not showing up properly or not being able to scale because you think that you are the one that has to be doing all of the work and you have to be the one that's executing when that's actually not the case. Your clients are hiring you because of your methodologies, your strategies, like you and you're training and hiring a team along those strategies and everything. And that is what they're hiring you for. So like that's just an example of like that limiting belief or like playing small because like that's an example of like the hamster wheel that you could be going on. So the next step that you could do is question it. Like, is this actually true? Where did this story limiting belief come from? Who told it to me? Is this a fact or a feeling? And most of the time when you hold the belief like up to the light, it starts to lose its grip, and it's like, I'm like, according to who, like, who says that clients are hiring my studio only for me? Like, who said that? Did someone actually say that? Where was it written? And the belief starts to sound like it doesn't actually matter because there's no like real substance behind it. The third step is to replace it with a truth. So not like some random affirmation or fluffy affirmation, but a truth you can actually stand behind. So for example, like my ambition is not in conflict with my motherhood. It's part of it. Wanting more doesn't make me ungrateful. It makes me honest to go after my dreams. When I build a full life, I show my children what's possible for theirs. That's a really, really big one for me. When I'm by me going after my dreams and doing everything that I want to do, that's showing my kids that they can also go and do that. Like I said, I could tell them every day, you could do whatever you want. Like, go, like, travel the world. Like, be the healthiest version of yourself. Like, love your job. But if I'm not living that on a daily basis, why would they ever listen to us? Another like story rewrite is, I'm allowed to want this, I'm allowed to build it, and I'm allowed to have it, and I am worthy. And pick one and write it somewhere that you will see it, say it out loud day after day until you like feel that shift. One of my favorite ones is like when I feel stuck in like hustle, I need to work harder, I need to do rather than just be. That's more fun, is the more fun I have, the more money I make. That's like, I say that one a lot because it really just like releases any of like the stress and parameters that I'm putting on myself, and like does allow me to just have more fun in my job, with my kids, with my health, all of those different things. Okay, so the fourth step is to take action that the belief that you said you couldn't. So for example, like, identity changes through action, not just thought and strategy and planning. So pick one belief that has been telling you that you can't or shouldn't or that you don't deserve to do, and do it this week. So raise your prices, like pitch someone, like start hiring, make an investment, ask for help, like take action, or like take an afternoon off, like go get a massage, like do something, like, or take the afternoon off and like go hang out with your kids. Do something that is evidence that it's possible, and those small steps will start to accumulate. Like one thing that I do, or I try to do at least once a week, is what's something I can do this week that I could never do in a 9 to 5. Like I think the 9 to 5 is really hard to, or like the corporate mindset is really hard to like break out of, again, as like social conditioning, especially like being a mom. It's like, oh no, I have to like sit down and work because then like I can go be my kids. It's like, why can't you like go to the beach with your kids from like 12 to 3 and then, work later in the day, or like just do something different that you wouldn't normally be able to do. But again, like that evidence that it's possible that you can do that and run a business and you can raise your prices, and work 25 hours a week, like whatever it is, like showing yourself and proving it to yourself is only going to build that confidence. And then the fifth thing is just find your people. Like, you need to be surrounded by people that believe in those same things, and that or are further along than you, or inspire you to expand and think bigger, and are proof that the life that you want is out there, and just like bounce ideas off of. Like, you cannot sustain a new belief in an environment that's constantly reinforcing the old one. So surrounding yourself with women who don't play small, who talk about their ambition without apology, who celebrate each other without any sort of jealousy, and that again just like remind you of what's possible on the days that like you forget and you're like, running after your children and also trying to build a business, like all of that stuff. But like your environment is feeding that belief, and you want to be around people who are doing the same exact thing. So just to recap on everything, I want you to just start to acknowledge those beliefs that might be coming up for you, whether it's in business, whether it's life, whether it's both. And then just create space between those thoughts, whether you journal, whether you just think of them, on how you can um, start to get rid of that pattern. And again, it's going to be a daily practice. It's not going to happen, overnight, and you're not going to do it every single day for a month and then just like it be second nature. Like it's going to be a constant practice, whether it's this specific belief that you're listening to now, or a new one that comes up over time. So I hope that you found value in this episode. I know it was a little bit different than what we normally go through, but it's definitely something like this mindset is what is keeping you from being who you are now and like that next level version of yourself, whether that's, someone who's has more increased revenue, who you want to become a mom but you're not yet, anything like that. That next step, that next goal, mindset is the first thing, and a lot of times it's these sneaky beliefs that are subconscious or conscious but you don't know what to do about them. This is where they come up. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next week.